how Ten Hag's Manchester United were able to exploit Tottenham's pressing deficiencies, why and how did Conte change his system for this game, and who were United's standout players. All of that is coming up in this video, but before I get into it, are you a Serie A fan from either the UK or Ireland? But with the OneFootball app, you can watch one Serie A game each weekend. This weekend it's Inter Milan versus Fiorentina. You can watch that game live on the OneFootball app at 7:45 on Saturday, as well as being able to use the OneFootball app for pretty much everything. Stats, transfers, tables, and all the latest news. So if that is something you are interested in, then click the link in the description. And by downloading the OneFootball app, you will be helping to support the channel. So going into the game, I assumed Conte's Tottenham would set up in their usual 5-2-3 system, which would become a 5-4-1 out of possession. However, we saw Conte spring a surprise, probably more down to the absence of both Kulusevski and Richarlison more than anything tactical, as Rodrigo Bentancur would play in a slightly more advanced position in a midfield three alongside Bissouma and Højbjerg, with Son and Kane playing as a front two ahead. Tottenham would look to press United man-to-man in the build-up, with Kane and Son pressurising each centre-back, and Bissouma pushing up from the midfield line to man-to-man press Casemiro, who was being used as United's deep single pivot, as Ten Hag's side would move into a kind of 2-3-4-1, 2-4-3-1 shape, depending on whether Fred either dropped alongside Casemiro or pushed up between the lines, as Ten Hag used that familiar staggered midfield setup, with all three of the United central midfielders staggered vertically, with Fred slightly higher and more to the left than Casemiro, and Fernandes higher than Fred, more on the right side sitting between the lines. However, despite Tottenham's willingness to engage United high up the pitch, they didn't commit enough to the press, and so United were able to play out of their defensive third, and even if they did come under too much pressure or De Gea's passing options were too risky, we would see De Gea be willing to go long, as United then looked to win the second ball in the middle third. Maybe Conte had seen in previous games that United were willing to go long when all options were closed off in the build-up, and so sought to keep the wing-backs deep during United's build-up. However, by not instructing Doherty and Perisic to position themselves higher up the flank to apply pressure immediately to the United fullbacks, this gave United an easy avenue out of pressure, as well as Varane and Martinez and also Casemiro in the centre of the pitch were being man-to-man pressed. Luke Shaw and Diego Dalot remained open on the flanks, and De Gea's clip passes out to the fullbacks were actually much improved in this game. But without the Tottenham wing-backs there to apply pressure instantly, Dalot and Shaw were comfortably able to get the ball under control and either carry the ball or make a pass into the middle third. With the wing-backs retaining deeper positions, we did also see Højbjerg and Bentancur wide of Bissouma pushing out of their central positions to try to apply pressure to the fullbacks when they received the ball, but they were far too deep to apply the pressure quickly enough, and Tottenham were able to constrain United and stop them playing out of their defensive third. When United were able to establish possession in the middle third, which was the pattern of play for most of the game, we saw Ten Hag's side drop into that familiar 2-3-4-1 shape that we have seen a lot of sides use this season, with both Dalot and Shaw taking up deep inverted positions alongside Casemiro, with Fred alongside Bruno Fernandes sitting higher up between the lines in the half space, with Antony and Sancho holding the advance width from the flanks. Over the past season or so, particularly in big games, we have seen Antonio Conte set up Tottenham in a vertically and horizontally compact 5-4-1 shape, with usually the two central midfielders in the midfield double pivot, Højbjerg and Bentancur, being the players to move out of the midfield line and apply pressure to the ball when it gets moved wide of Harry Kane, with the wide player on that side often retaining a deeper position. However, I think Conte recognised that with this flat midfield four out of possession, this would play into the hands of Ten Hag tactically, as likely what would happen is United's fullbacks, instead of holding that inverted position, would instead choose to pull out wide, pulling the two wide players in Tottenham's midfield four out and stretching the midfield line, and so when United would shift the ball wide of Harry Kane and one of the centre-backs would move out with the ball, as soon as one of the central midfielders in Tottenham's double pivot pushes out to close them down, this would open up a massive space in behind them. If United was smart about this, from this type of situation they could have Fernandes vacate that space, let's say by making a forward run, pulling the wide centre-back on that side backwards into the back line, positionally pinning him in a deep position, which would then of course maximise the space between the midfield and defensive lines, for then someone like Antony or Dalot to make a late run off the back of their marker into that space and look to receive the ball before turning. But with the 5-3-2 that Conte used, Tottenham had a narrow pentagon in the centre of the field, congesting the centre of the park and limiting the space between the lines, and I did think this was a much more effective defensive strategy to take, as rather than conceding the space in the centre of the pitch and between the lines as the flat midfield four behind Harry Kane in a 5-4-1 would force them to do, the 5-3-2, specifically that pentagon shape with the midfield and forward lines, stopped United being able to play through Fred, Casemiro and Fernandes, and instead forced them out to the flanks via Dalot and Shaw. However, Ten Hag used these fullbacks perfectly in this game by keeping both Dalot and Shaw inverted in narrow positions in the middle third. This gave United a perfect shape to circulate the ball from side to side and then funnel the attacks down the flanks through Dalot and Shaw. By taking up central and almost defensive midfield-like positions when United had the ball in Tottenham's half, this meant that when United wanted to go backwards and then switch to play quickly, the centre-backs or Casemiro always had a viable passing lane open to the fullback on that particular side. By then circulating the ball from side to side with great efficiency, this then pulled Tottenham's defensive shape across the pitch, which inevitably opens up spaces and passing lanes into Bruno Fernandes and Fred in behind the Tottenham midfield. Against Newcastle, United struggled to break down Eddie Howe's side, who sat and retreated in a compact 4-5-1 shape in the middle third. And throughout the game, United had a lot more joy when they countered quickly from the defensive or the middle third into the final third, and that was also the case in this game. Here we can see that Tottenham have initiated a high press, with Kane and Son applying pressure and Bissouma pushing up onto Casemiro. However, because the whole Tottenham team isn't pressing aggressively in unison, United are able to bounce the ball from De Gea into Casemiro and then out to Varane, from where, because Perisic has maintained a deeper position on the flank and Højbjerg is forced to cover the central space behind Bissouma, so Varane is able to drive out with the ball and finds a forward pass, allowing United to move out of their defensive third very smoothly, with little resistance from Tottenham's press, other than the front three of Kane, Son and Bissouma. From here, Varane's pass goes into Fernandes, who's attracted both Bentancur and Højbjerg, and here we see the second major problem with Tottenham's defensive shape, and that was that the defensive line was far too deep considering the front three were looking to press aggressively in United's defensive third, when Fernandes wonderfully dummies the ball, allowing it to roll through the Tottenham midfield line into Fred. We see that Tottenham's back line is not high enough up the pitch to allow one of the centre-backs to push out onto Fred and stop that space materialising in the first place. Because this doesn't happen, Fred's allowed to turn and almost threads a well-weighted through ball into the path of Marcus Rashford, before Doherty's interception takes the ball into Antony, from where his audacious lob of Lloris doesn't quite come off. But this move showed just how dangerous United can be when they move the ball forward vertically at pace from the build-up phase. The reason there was so much space in behind the midfield was because Tottenham had tried to press United aggressively around the box, and so this highlights the advantage of playing out from the back, something we have seen Ten Hag's side shy away from after the opening 2 games of the season. Because De Gea has decided to go short, the front three of Tottenham have to push extremely high up the pitch, but Tottenham's defensive line didn't seem comfortable with squeezing up to the halfway line in order to keep the pressing shape vertically compact, and so this means that if Tottenham's midfield line behind look to hold a deeper position to cover the space in front of their back line, then this gives United massive amounts of space once they beat the initial press. But if Bentancur and Højbjerg push up, keeping that front 5 pentagon vertically compact, they'll leave space in behind them. In the end, Tottenham seemed to do neither, and so this is why United had their best attacks when they either won the ball and countered quickly, or when they played through Tottenham's pressure. Had David De Gea not attempted to play out from the back and instead gone long earlier on in this situation, Tottenham's front line and midfield line wouldn't have been as high up the pitch, and so that space between both the front and the midfield and defensive lines would not have been created. And so you can see why managers associated with the Cruyffian school of thought generally want to play out from the back, even under intense pressure, as if you do bypass that initial press, there is space ahead for you to exploit. But before I go on, I do now have a clips channel where I will be uploading shorter content from my previous videos, and I'll even release some clips of some future videos that should be coming out soon, so subscribe to the channel, it will be linked in the description, and follow my Instagram and Twitter for more content as well, those will all be linked in the description below. Out of possession, we would see United try to engage Tottenham high up the pitch in the build-up phase in their defensive third. Tottenham's back 5 would shift into a temporary back 4, with Ben Davies pulling out to the left flank, allowing Perisic to push further forward up the pitch. We would see United use that narrow 4-2-3-1 shape with Antony and Sancho high and central either side of Fernandes. Rashford would initiate the press, applying pressure to the keeper or to the centre-back, and then positioning himself so that he could cut off the passing lane back across goal, with Antony or Sancho on the opposite side, sitting high, ready to press the other centre-back should the player get switched across the box. However, initially United did face a few problems in their press. Tottenham would use a 2-4-3-1 shape in the build-up, with Højbjerg dropping deep alongside Bissouma. This would then force United to adapt, with Fred pushing up alongside Fernandes to enable United to continue the man-to-man pressure. We would also see Bentancur drop deep in possession, creating a deep midfield three for Tottenham in their build-up, but this would allow Casemiro to push up alongside Fred without the threat of another player sitting in behind the midfield, allowing United to make their press a lot more vertically compact. In the middle third, Bentancur was playing a much more advanced role, sitting ahead of the double pivot in the right-sided half space, while Son did the same on the left, and so because Fred had pushed up alongside Fernandes, it was up to Casemiro to follow Son's movement, inevitably dragging the Brazilian into a wide and deep position, but also Lisandro Martinez and Shaw had to be very good, which they were, at following both Kane and Bentancur when they tried to drop into that space in behind the United midfield line. Both United centre-backs dealt with Kane incredibly well, staying tight to him and stopping him being able to receive the ball to feet turn and then find a forward pass. In terms of beating the press, the only avenue that Tottenham really had came from Lloris playing those lofted passes over Antony or Sancho into one of the wide players, which is something that I've talked about in my last few match analysis videos, as it is a massive reason why long passing ability for keepers is becoming so important in the modern game. Incidentally, I actually thought De Gea's passing in this game was very good. Yes, Tottenham didn't press as aggressively as they probably should have, mainly on the flanks, but De Gea's ability to loft the ball over the Tottenham frontline press into Dalot or Shaw was invaluable in allowing United to then move the ball up the pitch. But throughout the game, Tottenham didn't have much joy in breaking through United's 4-4-1-1 shape in the middle and final thirds, recording an XG of just 0.66 to United's 1.71, with Conte's side having an XG of just 0.18 as they went into half-time, showing how little Tottenham really created. And to be fair, both sides did stifle each other when they dropped off into either the 4-4-1-1 for United or Conte's 5-3-2. However, the difference was that United were much better when transitioning their attack quickly, whether this was from the build-up or from a counter-press, and this was where the opening goal came from. The goal stems from Lisandro Martinez winning an aerial duel against Bentancur in the centre of the field. Eric Dyer in the backline knocks the ball towards Højbjerg, who is caught flat-footed, allowing Fernandes to jump in front, intercept the pass, and now United have a 4v3 coming into Tottenham's defensive third, with Sancho and Antony providing the runs wide of the back three. Fernandes finds Antony on the right side, who picks the exact right option, switching the ball over to Sancho on the edge of the box, who lays the pass to Fred, and his deflected shot trickles into the far corner past the helpless Hugo Lloris. Now, I thought whilst Ten Hag's 2-3-4-1 possession shape did allow for efficient circulation, United still need to work on their movement patterns out wide, as inevitably when they come up against a deep compact defensive shape like Tottenham's 5-3-2, they are only naturally going to be forced out to the flanks, which they were quite often in this game, with both fullbacks and wingers having a lot of possession. I thought both Dalot and Shaw were excellent in this game. In recent United games, whilst the fullbacks, whether it's Dalot, Malacia or Shaw, have all looked good defensively and when circulating the ball from a deep position, but in this game I thought both Shaw and Dalot were very good in the final third and with their overall ball progression. An example is here. Usually Antony and Sancho hold wide positions in the attack. However, on this occasion Antony has moved in field, and Dalot correctly takes this as an opportunity to overlap. He does this, receives the ball from Antony, and now is able to square up Perisic in a 1v1. Now, throughout this season, I have felt like United's wide players, Antony and Sancho as well as the fullbacks, have been reluctant to take on players when they do get into these 1v1 positions. However, as you'll see here, by Dalot being direct, driving down the line, he's able to get into a great crossing position. He lofts across to the back post, and but for a superb Lloris save, Luke Shaw may have scored one of the goals of the season with his first time volley at the back stick. Bruno Fernandes would add a second after he and Fred had pushed forward into the box, and his curling finish around Dyer into the corner was more than worthy of sealing this game. McTominay was brought on to play ahead of Casemiro and alongside Fred, with Fernandes now becoming part of the front three on the right side, and this gave United more athleticism and defensive security in the middle of the pitch, with United now firmly defending in a 4-3-3, a shrewd tactical move from Ten Hag, as rather than just having Casemiro and Fred in the centre of the field, United now had three players, reducing the space for the likes of Kane and Bentancur to get on the ball between the lines. And I thought pretty much every player for United had a good game, though the standouts in my opinion were Dalot and in particular Luke Shaw, who I thought were excellent not just defensively but also going forward, with Dalot's passing from deep and his directness down the flank being exactly what United need behind Antony, while Shaw was also terrific, overlapping Sancho, and I do prefer Shaw to Malacia at the moment, as I feel the Englishman is able to inject pace into United's attack when the ball is switched over and he's able to race forward, whilst also showcasing his passing range in this game, playing a number of long passes to either switch the play or release a player in behind the back line. Casemiro was very good at not only breaking up the play in the centre of the field, but also playing out of pressure well, with Rashford also having a very good showing up front. He made a number of very good well-timed runs in behind the back line and down the channel, and but for Hugo Lloris, he probably would have had at least one goal in this game. So let me know what you thought of United's performance in this game in the comments section. Check out some of my other videos which will be linked in the description. And if you did enjoy the video, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you do get notified when my videos come out.